Welcome back to automating the DA Form 6. This is going to start part 3, and we are going to pick up where we left off last time. A couple of things that we need to do on this one is get our from date, to date, and our month laid out here. And we'll see if we have time to change these so they're not manually input. So our from date is where we're actually going to start. So on this one will be a manual input. So we'll say that we want to start our DA6 on January 1st. We are going to use those numbers to populate these numbers down here. There are 40. You guys can't see my mouse. I keep forgetting. There are 40 days. So what we want to do is our to date, we'll just make it 40 days after that. So we'll say this equals our from date plus 39. 39 more days, hit enter. We get February 9th, right? So January is 31 days, so it'd be February 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and that is correct. So that part's good. All we have to do is put in our first date here and it'll change it. So if we can test that here, we'll put the 4th, hit enter, changes it to the 12th. That is correct. Change that back to 1. For the month, we want to have it just say what the months are. So it should say January-February. That's what we're going for. So we'll say equals month of this date. Let's see what that does. It gives me a 1. So what we want to do here in our back end is we'll have our month, num, month, day, or month, num, month, name. So we'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, and we'll bring that down to 12. Oh, no. Take that all the way down to 12. And then on this one, I'll have January. And then we'll select this and copy that down to December. Now we have a table for that. You know me, I like to name my tables, so we'll go ahead and name this whole table with, I like to do Control T and just make it an actual table. My table has headers, okay. We can take off the formatting, go to F3, go to Control F3. There, our table we just made is right here. Call this table month, num, name. Back over on our DA6, we get a 1. So what are we going to do? Obviously a VLOOKUP. VLOOKUP value is going to be that. That gives us a 1. We want to look that 1 up in our new table called, what did I call it? Month. And because I named it, it's already in my selection. So I'm going to select month, num, name. The column index number is going to be the second because it was just the first row was numbers and the second row was names. We talked about that last time. And it's not in alphabetical or numerical value, so we'll just put a 0 just because we're going to get it by name. There we go. We have January. But we want to actually say January to what? So we'll say January to February, right? So we'll take this, and anytime you want to add letters, you got to put them in quotations. So we'll say we're going to take that answer of January, put an and sign. This takes 2 strings of texts and pushes them together. So the string of text we get from our formula is going to say January. We're going to say and quotation mark because we're starting to type in text. I like to put a space and a dash in that quotation mark. Wait, what? Nope. Dash, space, quotation, and hit enter. Then we have January space, dash, space. That's good. And then we're going to take the same idea over here and do it with the end date. So VLOOKUP, month, the to date, month, num, name, comma, 2, comma, 0, close it out, hit enter. Oh, and I forgot to put my ampersand. Ampersand, so we'll say and this string of text. You don't want to forget your ampersand. We have a formula for month. I had to close that parenthesis out. Now we have January and February. So for that, it's VLOOKUP, month, and then where is the month? It's in our pink. And then the month name, which is the table we made, the second column of the table, and 0 because it's not in alphabetical order. Moving right along, that is done. Next, we want to have the day of the month from our start date. So this should still say 1, but we're going to delete all this. We're just going to remove all this. And we'll say equals day of this. What do we get? 1. Now, if this said the 21st, it come back with the 21st. But we don't want that. So for day 2 and beyond, it's going to be a little bit different. So day 1 is equals day, period. Get a 1, good to go. Next, we want to say basically the same thing, equals day. And then we're just going to put a +1. So we'll add 1 day on top of that. What do we get? 2. Simple. Test by changing this to 11. And it worked. 11 and 12. Bring that back. So we'll take this, copy this over. What do we get? The wrong stuff. All right, what do we get? Oh, I see what I did. All right. So I made a big mistake when I made this, and I am scrapping the whole hour of work that I did. Basically, what I was going to explain is that for the day, I put this cell, which is our reference point where we manually put in our dates, +1. And then in the next one, I did that cell +2, that cell +3. And that worked, but you cannot copy it over very easy. And because of that, it messed up these cells to a point where it was unmanageable. And I had to manually change every single one of these. And that is not the way you want to do this. I'm going to do some hidden cells. We're going to have to do hidden cells later anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and make a hidden cell. And I'm going to delete most of my work here. I'm actually going to leave the end mostly for a reference point for me. And we will discuss how to do this a different way. What I said in the other video is true. There are more than one way. There's always more than one way to do something in Excel. There's usually 8 ways to do something in Excel. The way I did it was not the best way. So I'm not even going to show you anymore. Instead, we're going to do it a better way. I'm going to add in a helper cell. And this is common, but I'm going to add in the dates here. But I want to format these cells just so it's easier for us to read. Like I said, they're going to be hidden, so it doesn't really matter. But I like to make pretty things. This I'm going to say equals the same date here, which is that date. And this cell is going to equal the cell next to it plus 1. So it equals this cell plus 1. This cell to the left plus 1. Now if we click and drag over, we have all of our dates for us here. These are going to be our reference points for the information down below. This is going to be equals day. It's going to be the same formula I just showed, except I'm going to use this cell as a reference point, hit enter, and we get 1. And because I'm referencing the cell above it, which is AI2, I can just click and drag that over, and it puts everything in the way it's supposed to put it in there. That is such an easier way to do this, and I spent over an hour explaining that in the other video, so trust me, you're fine. We need to have a reference point for the other 39 cells to build off of. Excel cannot make something out of thin air. You have to give it a reference point. With programming, and Excel is basically a form of programming. It's an easier form of programming, but it is programming. You have to give reference points to the program, or it just can't build nothing from nothing, right? So we're going to manually type in some days here. 1, 2, 5, x1, 3, 2, 1, x2. Now, what we're trying to say in here is Ox King is on day 1, but we want to see what should the next day be. And these numbers you would already have from the previous DA6, because this is basically a recursive form you make. So when you get over here toward the end, the last day on the end is going to be the first day on the beginning here. But realistically, you're going to get to about here, and then somebody's going to have a birthday, and they're going to want it off, and you have to do the whole DA6 over. That's why we're all here, because those little minor annoyances makes you end up changing this thing at least once or twice a week. But in this case, I wrote day 1. Now we need to see on February 2nd, is this person set as a special date on the availability tracker? So Ox King, hang on, I want to do something real quick. Format this, move it up. Okay. This cell right here, this whole column right here is going to be hidden, but we need it for our formula, so we're going to leave it for now. But Ox King actually is on school on the 1st, and Jokeless Comedian is on E on his first day. So we can go ahead and put that in there. This should say SC. We can type it in there, and this should say E. What we want to see is, what would the next day be? Before we can say he's on day 3, his next day needs to be day 4. That is correct, but we want to see, is he on the availability tracker first? We want to look up this name and this date and get the center point of that. This name, this date, and we want to see SC as our answer. The best formula to do this is called an index, because index returns a value or reference of a cell at the intersection of a particular row and column in a given range. Exactly what I said. A column of Ox King and a row of date should give us the intersection, which is here. We need to enter a couple things. We need to know what array we're looking at. There's 2 ways to do this. I'm going to do the first one, where it says array, row, and column number. So our formula we want to use, an index, it's called index. And our array that we're going to be looking in is going to be availability tracker A1 to, and I'm not going to click and drag. Instead, I'm going to just type it in here, ZZ200, and remove the last. So that means it's going to be really big in case we need to add more people down and we need to move to the right more to do a whole year. That's going to leave us plenty of room, because I don't know how much 26 times 26 is, but it's over 25,050 something. I don't know what it is, but it's more than 365, and that's really all I care about. So if we come back to DA6, so that of the row number, we're going to use match to get the row number that we're going to look for on the array we just said, which is this whole sheet. We want to get row number 2. And we're going to do this by, on the DA6, remove that. Anytime you're in a formula, if you click between the tabs, it'll add that tab in there. We don't necessarily want it to do that every time, because the formula is already in this. We don't want to reference it as itself from a third person, if that makes any sense. If our formula is here, we're just going to type the letters that we want. In this case, it's column C, number 6, and we're gonna constrain this, not lock it in. We're gonna constrain it so that C is the right column, but the row 6 can change to 7, 8, 9, 10. So when we copy down, it'll be correct. So look up that value from the array of column B here. And then that will say, look up Ox King and give me the answer. And in this case, it's going to say 1, 2. And it should give me a number 2. And because we're using names and we don't want to worry about if there's 2 people with the same name, like Magoo and lady and gentleman, it wouldn't work because L comes before G unless we did exact match. So we're going to do that. And then that ends our row number. And then for our column number, do the same thing and remove our DA6 here. We are going to do a match. So we get however many in the row. And the match number we're going to look for is our date, which is the one above it, which is 1/2/24, 2024. So we'll click that. We just want K4. Constrain it so that we stay in row 4 but change K. So K is allowed to change, but 4 is not allowed to change. That's what we want. And then lookup array is going to be our first column here. So it should give us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is our answer. And we'll just do exact match because they say exactly the same thing, so it doesn't matter. And then that ends our index. So an index has 2 matches, and we get SC. If we wanted to evaluate the formula to see what it actually did, we can do that. So we can click evaluate formula, and we can walk through here. Anytime you have an issue with a formula, this is where I always want to start, because this is going to tell you exactly what it did. In this case, the formula works, but we can still see what happens. It tells us our whole formula here, and if we hit evaluate or step in, right? So you can see the underline here is C6. We could step in, and it tells us what the answer of that is, which is Ox King, and step out. And then it goes ahead and changes that C6 to Ox King. If we hit evaluate again, where this underline is, which availability tracker B:B, and it gives us a match of a date. That number right there is an actual date. And keep evaluating, and what we end up with is a C, SC, and that's what we wanted. Now, if our formula worked the way I want, we can click and drag down, and it did not work because I see what I did. I can already see what I did, and this is going to be a problem, is that I did not constrain this properly. And if you look here, the formula that I correctly put in has B colon B as one of our lookup values and row 1 colon 1. But when I copied it down, I got B colon B because it's a column, but it changed this to 2, 2. We don't want that. So now what it's doing is looking in this row for the date, and it will never find it because that's never in there. That's why we have that error. Same thing would happen if I click and drag to the right. Same thing. Instead of being BB, now it's CC, which means it's looking in this column for names, and it will never find it. So you got to pay attention to your constraints. So if we undo, and we come back here, all we got to do is highlight our double B's, press F4, colon B, colon B. That's what we want. Same thing here with our ones. Hit F4 one time. $1, $1. I said colon. Not colon, $. The one with the money, that's the one we're talking about. With that, hit enter. Same thing happens, but when I drag down, it still didn't work. Why didn't they give us that? What else did I mess up? I did not constrain this. Right here. Same problem. Man, I'm on it today. Okay, so this needs to be constrained also. Now, if we hold, now if we go down, we get this. E, which is what we wanted. Now, if I were to put a T or a TY, whatever, it doesn't matter. In the second day, then it puts it in there. What you'll see here is NA because there's no name to reference. That's kind of a problem, so let's go ahead and fix that. We want to say, actually, I'll fix that last. We'll fix that last. We want to work on the numbers. The easiest way that I found to do this part is what I'm going to show you next, and we can change it later. I'm going to put some extra cells over this way. One of them is going to be here, and it's going to be our selector for what kind of schedules are we going to work. 5 and 2, 6 and 2, 4 and 4, whatever it's going to be. So I'm going to merge these cells, and we'll work on populating most of it later, but I'm going to put 5 and 2. Wait, can't capitalize a 5. 5 and 2. Which means 5 days on and 2 days off. On the back end, I already called it rotation 5 and 2. And what I did here was, it's just going to be a table with these two columns. So what I'm going to do is a VLOOKUP to say, look up the number, and if the number is a 1, give the answer of 2. That's your next day that you're going to have. If it's a 2, give a 3. If it's a 3, give a 4, blah, blah, blah. If it's a 5, give it the first day off. And if it's a first day off, give a second day off. If it's second day off, give a 1. And then that'll rotate us all the way back around, because if you get a 1, then make it 2. Simple as that. Rotation 5 and 2. On the DA6, I'm going to say, in the DA6 part, we're just going to have this here, and it's going to be a drop down later that says 4 and 2, 6 and 2, 4 and 4, whatever you want it to be. I'll show you that part later. But for now, we're just going to do 5 and 2 just to get this working, and then we can tweak it a little bit later. So our next answer for Lady Magoo should say X1 by the time we're done here. I'm going to move this back to 22 because it bothers me that it's wide. Okay. Even though this is blank, we still have our formula in there. It's not an actual blank cell. It's just a cell that doesn't show anything. because our leave tracker shows blank, so it gives a blank. What we want to say is, if, let's say it in English, if the availability tracker is blank, like it is, so if this is blank, then VLOOKUP this number in this set of row of numbers and give us the answer on this side. And then if it's not blank, then do what we just said and give the letters. Okay? That gives us our conditions for if. So if true, give us the next number. If false, then just give us a letter from the availability tracker. So we're going to tack this on the beginning. If this is blank, we're just going to do it twice. It's kind of overkill, but I don't care. I'm just going to copy that. So, whoop, hold on. I'll copy this first one here. We're working in the first cell. I copied everything except the equal sign. And we're going to change this one. If this whole thing right here equals blank, then VLOOKUP the number to the left on the back-end table that we already named. I named it rotation 52. And we're going to look up in the first column and give the answer of the second column. Column number that we're going to give the value from is 2, because it's 1, 2. And these are not in alphabetical or numerical value because they have an X. So we're just going to put 0 so we get a false exact match. Close that bracket. And then if it's false, we're just going to paste in the formula that we already had. So the formula is actually in there twice. Don't care. If it works, it works. Close the bracket. Hit enter. And what do we get? It looks the same. But if I copy this down, it changes. Now, Lady Magoo has her first day off on the second day there. If we copy that over, X2. If we copy this all the way over, boom, everything's good. We still have this problem here. And this is because we don't have a name here. That's a condition. If this is blank, then be blank. If not, then do everything else. Back to our formula here. Do another if. You can do a bunch of if statements. I don't remember how many it is. Somewhere close to 128. I don't remember. We're not going to do that many. We're going to do like 5. So if this cell here, and we're going to push a 4. We want to have the column C stay. Yeah, we're going to have column C stay, and we want to change 6. So we want to have $C and then allow the 6 to change. So if that cell equals blank, which we talked about before, is signified by quotation mark, quotation mark. So if that is blank, then what do? Show a blank. So if that equals blank, then show a blank. Otherwise, do everything else. Because we added another if statement, we're going to add a parenthesis on the bottom so it doesn't scream at us, and we'll hit enter. Still looks the same. But now, when we copied it down, it's also blank. We can take this, highlight, move it all the way over here, and we have our next problem. So we can copy this baby down to the bottom. And our problem here is we have no reference point. Remember earlier I said there's no reference point. So this comes up with an A. What we want to do at this point is there's no other conditions that are not going to be met. It's either going to have something from the availability tracker to show, regardless of what it says. If it's in here, it'll show it. If it's not in there, it's going to add a number. It's going to do our loop for the 5 and 2. The only other thing it can do is after the letters, it doesn't know what to type. Instead, what we're going to say is if in A, because that's an in A. If in A, which is different than if. So if in A, this whole thing, this whole formula, if all of this is an NA, we're going to say comma, make it a 1. and then close that bracket. What it'll do is the first time it shows up as an NA, it'll make it a 1, and then it'll kick back over to our loop and allow us to take that 1, make it a 2. We hit the button. Everything looks fine. Copy it down. Looks good. Copy it to the right. What do we get? Boom. Exactly what I wanted. So we got SC all the way until the 17th, which is from here all the way to the 17th. And then on the 18th, I went ahead and picked up a 1 because this was a condition of an NA. But then this one's not an NA because it goes back through the loop and picks up a 2. Copy all of this, paste it down, and everybody's happy. And that is basically an automated DA6. So for now, this works for everything except if you go over day 5, it doesn't know what to do. It'll make the next day a 1, which is horrible because then you'll work 6 days and then work 5 more days. We've all done it. It's not fun. So to finish this part up and get ready for our next section, we're going to left click on 4, right click, and say hide. We don't want to delete. We want to hide this. And this is how the DA6 would look. The one thing you want to do is before you print, just highlight the whole thing. After we finish doing the formulas, we won't have to do this every time, but highlight the whole thing, do a thick border all the way around, a thick boy all the way around. When you go to print, highlight the whole thing to here, and we'll set the print area, but you could just say print, file, print, and you want to change all your stuff around. We want to do landscape because we don't want to do the top one, and we want to use print active print selection, which is what I just highlighted. It's print selection and scale fit sheet on one page, or you can just print it like that. Nobody'd probably care. Or you're gonna actually add extra stuff on the end. Just because the DA6 only goes to 40 days, we've already tweaked it so much. It is basically the same form, except instead of grade, it says rank. That's the only actual change that we made to this. But I'm going to tell you right now, nobody cares if you put 10 more days on this. It'll work. For the purpose of this, I'm just going to leave it at 40. You can mess with your margins. After you set all those margins and everything, and your print area, you don't have to worry about it anymore. But this is something you're going to have to do the first time, and it's going to be a little off kilter. You could mess with your margins if you want to, do custom margins and fit everything in the center. That's up to you. But for the purpose of what I'm doing, I'm not messing with that because I don't even have a printer. The thing is, you don't want to have this extra stuff on the side printed. You don't want to have your extra cell printed here because it just, people are going to ask, and then they're going to be like, why does it have the date here and the day here? Because shut up. Don't worry about it. In the next video, we're going to go through these dates, and we're going to do a conditional formatting to highlight what is a Saturday and a Sunday, and then we'll color these. So if this was Saturday and Sunday, we'll make it gray. That might matter if you want it to. Some people like it. And we will work on more. We'll do a 4 and 2 and a 6 and 2, and just to show what that would look like. We can also do the ratios of work versus off to see who's fair and who's not fair. That's probably all going to be in the next video. But for this one, I'm going to hide my guy here. And you could hide this part on the right if you wanted to, but you don't have to. And now I can print this off for Goku so he knows what day he works. And we will see you next time.